way to work today, and I thought you might appreciate seeing what the river looks like now we're officially in the dry season. A little whitetails over there. You can see it's just much less, well, the water level's gone down tremendously, and you can actually see what it looks like now. So you've got the river, you've got all this dry part over there, the cars parked at the back. There's no water. This whole wetland swamp has dried up. There's still a little bit traces, like this water here will go eventually, and then you'll just get the river. But you can see why there's two bridges, because there's another stream here and here. We just walk on a bit so you can see what I mean. Yeah, but this is classic. This is, I mean, it's hard sometimes to see what Uganda would have looked like 20, 10, 30 years ago, because of course I wasn't around then. But I think this gives you some sort of idea of the type of habitat around this part of the country anyway. And you can see down here there's no eucalyptus, it's all sort of indigenous trees. That's the eucalyptus in the distance, and then actually upstream, throughout the slope a bit, there's eucalyptus as well, but see the river splits into two, hence two bridges. But yeah, much better crossing. Even there, you see the matoki. Zoom in a bit. That's my big finger. Sorry, but that stuff in the background's the matoki, which is, I feel like, I always say to people, it always feels like it's matoki or eucalyptus that's planted, and this is a nice part of the drive to the farm for me, because I think it's quite pretty. You get monkeys here, there's an ibis flying, it's quite nice. You can see the cattle come down here to water as well, there's hoof prints. And yeah, you can see here, this is the temperature that we've put up, which is next to the hatching of the eggs, and you can see here the current temperature, the maximum and the minimum, and that 12.3, sorry, far too low, which is I think why we've had so much issue with hatching with these maggot eggs, because we looked at a thing that said, someone did some research, if it's 25 degrees it takes 4 days to hatch, if it's 20 degrees it takes 8 days, and if it's colder than that then they start to struggle. So I think the drop in temperature overnight was causing an issue. So one solution we're thinking is putting this inside the bay, that there's a bit of warmth coming from the bottom, so that should incubate it, insulate it slightly. But it's not all lost. This is stuff that was left. We collected the maggots, and then these sort of bits of cardboard were just left for a long time, but we do actually have quite a bit of maggots in there now. So they do hatch, it just takes a lot longer. And I think the issue is the longer it is, the more chance the eggs are getting dried out, or they're getting too wet, or the substrate are getting dried out. So all those things, we might have to think of a different way to hatch the eggs. And even for our customers, I think they would struggle to get this right. We've had the malnutrition project, we're sort of trialling it with them, and they're struggling to get them to hatch from eggs. Hatchlings, no problem. Eggs is a different story, so we might start just selling the hatchlings. It's looking good in here. We've actually now as well got a new system going where people are bringing waste. So these are the matoki ones I looked at earlier. So these are all now full. This is full, which is what we want. So we want excess substrate, because we should have a lot of maggots, and people are getting paid to bring it. So it gives them a bit of income, but it helps us because it's a bit of a pain collecting the substrate, diverting staff to do that when they could be doing other things. But our polytunnel is looking okay. I think the numbers have gone down a bit, but we're just because of the hatching, our hatching mixed hatching, I guess. So we're a bit behind the curve in terms of how many flies we'd want. But now we've sort of got it right, I think we'll be okay. We just need to, like I say, modulate the temperature, because that's the challenge I think we're facing. So we somehow think of a way to increase the temperature for the eggs as they come out. I think this could be a short term. I might try and see if I can build some sort of cabinet where we can store these in, and then that cabinet can be insulated a bit so it keeps warmer at night. I think that would help, because of course you can imagine something like this, that it's just, eggs are going to get quite cold quite quickly, and the thermometer's proved that for us. So yeah, I'm going to go see what I can get in town then go to the farm. You see pond Isabel that's been drained. You can see, I always think it's interesting, it's a bit of red, which is probably that little plant that grows, and then all these nests everywhere, because we actually, when we emptied it, there was I think they showed me at least one female with in here. So yeah, you do get these nests, but we can see we've taken all the fish out. Now, I wasn't necessarily going to tell you exactly what happened here, just because, maybe I feel a bit embarrassed, but basically I think we stopped at 5,000, but we've actually taken out a lot less fish than that, as in sold, and so we've got loads of fish missing, just over half I think it is, and we don't know what happened to them. Now, you sort of expect some mortality, but that's really high. Oh, there's a dead one there. There goes another missing one. So there's a bunch of issues with that, because I don't know where they've gone, and you wouldn't expect to have every single fish, because when you're putting in the fingerlings, you're sampling like you count a scoop, and then you just count how many fish are in a scoop, and then you use that as an average for the rest. So you then put in 20 scoops or whatever it is, 30 scoops, so you get the right number of fish. So there could be errors in that. You get some mortality, because of course some die, they'll sink, they'll go into the mud, they'll rot as they would. Some get picked by birds, maybe a few snakes here and there. It just, over time you lose some. Some obviously is human error, so sometimes you're counting fish, maybe you miss a few, maybe there's a couple of mortalities you don't record, things like that. But anyway, it's a huge number. Yeah, but I share it with you because I think it's useful if you are interested in coming along with us. I want to show you the ugly side of fish farming and the not successful side. This is definitely one. I mean, we'll still make some money from this because we fed the fish not as much as they should have got. We fed them, and we'll still get money from the sales, and we did, but we've definitely lost money, I would say, on this pond. I'm sure it's a similar story to this pond because they were stocked at the same sort of time. And I think there's been a lot of issues like these because we struggled to get our system of selling really up and running as quickly as we wanted. There's been huge amounts of delays, just like lots of different reasons, finding the right price point, the size, we've talked about that a lot. It's the small fish that we want to sell because that's what most people can afford, but then people complaining, and so getting it to the right amount is tricky. But I'll just say, I think I'm happy with the model we've got. I'll show you over there in a second. There's actually a new lady that's come. She's sat on the bench. Maybe she's around the corner, but they're frying fish because she wants to take some, and she's going to start selling as a trading centre over there. Anyway, so my point is, I think we've got a lot of fish which failed to sell, so they've sat in the pond for a long time. They've been in these ponds for well over a year, like coming up to 18 months, which is a huge amount of time. I mean, I'm hoping we'll have fish within 6 months. So anyway, that causes issues because the longer it is, the more chance they've got to die, that type of thing. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you, and hopefully that'll encourage any fish farmers that are watching this and are thinking, oh, we're not doing very well. Well, the first cycle we definitely made lots of mistakes, and I think the combination of all these little mistakes and end up with we've probably lost money in these ponds, but that's all right. We've onwards and upwards. The black soldier fly will make a huge difference in our costs. I was just looking at some of the numbers today, and very encouraged by the potential reduction in costs that we'll get, because I think will make a big difference to how many fish we can sell, how quickly, for other farmers in the region, for them selling fish. Like, it's going to have a huge impact, and hopefully it'll mean that fish becomes one of the cheaper forms of protein, not the most expensive. This is the lady I was talking about who's going to take our fish. So they're preparing currently, and put it as frying. I'm just going to take 50 of the fish and then sell them locally. So hopefully she'll be long term with us, and it's the start of just adding people to our network, and then we can help other people to sell as well.